Evening, everyone. Just a quick crash course here on Csec Paper 2, just taking you through the review. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep on moving forward. And that's certainly true when it comes to Csec Paper 2. It's a lot of writing, guys. So to keep moving forward, it's best that you start to write what you're comfortable doing. Now, the paper will begin with section 1 or A. But this section, you're expected to spend only 40 minutes. And you have to ensure that you list 5 main points, combine these points, as well as others in a logical manner, where you're going to omit unnecessary details and repeated ideas, and you're going to be generalizing details presented in statistics, examples, and repetition to the topic to be summarized. Of course, you can look at the itemized information at the end of the extract for the topic, or you can just look at the title, because sometimes there is a title there to help you to zoom in on what you're expected to summarize. Then, having done that, you're expected to convey this in clear, concise language. Then you're asked to present on only the ideas that you would have been asked to focus on in the extract given. And you're going to use your own words, use properly organized paragraph, 2 paragraphs acceptable as well. The paragraphs themselves must have a beginning, a middle, and ending. And of course, you want to use relevant connectives throughout these paragraphs here. The information that you write for summary should amount to 120 words. And if you use a little over this or a little less than this, you're going to have to count. It's the only piece of work that you count the number of words used, and you're going to enclose this in brackets. Now, what is it that Csec expects? Now, when you're doing the summary, you're actually going to be graded for your understanding, which is what you would have been presented in with the main points, which must be sentences, by the way. And then your expression, so how you put things together to convey your own understanding of the information will work towards your expression profile. And of course, you know, you have your language use and mechanics, which amounts to another 10 marks. So it's 5, 10, 10. The content will be the 5 main points, sentences, of course, and 2, you're going to be expected to show completeness and organization of this content information as you put them together to create your summative ideas. Of course, they should be error-free and should have the relevant grammatical and punctuation information. Now, only the first 120 words will be marked, and only accurate information will be marked. Bear in mind, guys, that you will not be penalized if you don't start the same way as the original piece. But if you are to look thoroughly on the notes under 1 and 2 of this section, you'll realize that whatever you convey should reflect accuracy, achieve the purpose or the intent of the message, and it must establish the particular tone that is expected. And for 2, now as you arrange or organize the content information, remember you need to ensure that you use the 5 points plus the other points to find yourself in ranges 5 to 6, which is a higher class grade. Now, If you're looking at points 3, 4, and 5, you will see that the summary paragraph must contain, if it contains fewer than the 5 required points, you can only get a range 1. So the point is, ladies and gentlemen, is to ensure that you put back all the 5 points that you have summarized in your own words. That plus other points should help to create your summary. Now, if you lift the information, see the noted information there, in these students who have performed incompetently in areas 1 and 2 is limited to 4 marks in the mechanics. Now, the language which is entirely lifted from the passage should score 0 marks on the language. All right? So you have to be careful to ensure that you use your own words. Now, section B or 2, you're expected to take 35 minutes to do this section. The good thing about this section is that Csec gives you what they want to put back in the body of whatever it is that they ask you to do. And this section could contain any one of the ideas here. It could be a letter, it could be an article, it could be a blog, it could be a notice or report or an email. And for that reason, you were given all of these from grades 9 to now. Now, this particular section does not have a word limit, but it is expected that you will be conveying the content, and the content is awarded 10 marks, and then you look at your organization, which of course factors in the arrangement of information that is given to you in the scenario that Csec presents. And of course, you have the language use, which you're expected to focus on your sentences being complete, clear, meaningful, and effective and appropriate to whatever it is that you're asked to do. Now, this section, you can just quickly pass this section because once the format and conventions are adhered to, so you know that if it's a letter, we're going to look at that in a short while, the format and conventions for the different sections. And then once it is relevant to the scenario and it is clear and information is accurate and complete and appropriate, you automatically would have gotten 10 marks. So what it means for you now is that out of the 20 marks that you have remaining, if you score a 5 marks out of that, which you will do because you're pretty smart, you would definitely pass this section. So let's zoom in on the letters. So the letters could take the form of letter of information or any other formal business letter, right? So there we have a Csec scenario, and at the bottom where you see the black arrow right here, you realize that it says details of the complaint. Make sure to include all the details that would help in highlighting the matter your letter should include. So watch this section because this is where you put these pieces of information into the body of whatever you're asked to write on. Now, just some quick facts about a letter of information. So when you're thinking about a letter of information, remember each paragraph should start with a topic sentence. The idea should be justified. That means you must be telling us, giving an example, explanation, and consequence or results. You need to convey to us the sentences that should be logical and connected with link words like moreover, for example, therefore, and however. And remember, it's facts. So the facts will come from the scenario that Csec choose to give you in question 2. Now, for the letter, any letter at all, you know, you begin with a sender's address, then you have the date, then you have the receiver's title, the receiver's address, the greeting and salutation, introduction. Of course, you would include why you write, and for the body, you have 3 well-developed paragraphs, including details given in scenario. Remember, it's a letter, so a paragraph could pretty much have 1 sentence. Now, the conclusion, you're going to state contact information, if more information is necessary to be had, or if you're asking the person to seek clarity. And then, of course, you have your closing and your signature. So we expect to see 5 developed paragraphs here, but again, there is no specified word limit. Now, we know we normally start a letter of information with I am writing to inform you that, or I'm writing to inform you about, I'm writing to advise you of, I'm writing to let you know that, I'm writing in response to, I'm writing with regard to, I'm writing in connection with, or I'm writing to reply to, or in reference to. And just as we have the beginning specified for the letter of information, we also have the ending specified. So you could end with the concluding paragraph for your letter of information could be, I hope that this information will be of some assistance. I hope or trust that I have been able to answer all your questions. I will be pleased or happy to provide you with additional information. I'm looking forward to your reply. And my contact information are, and you state what they are. Now, as we go over into article, the characteristics of an article. So your article must have a heading or a title. You must have a byline. And we know the byline basically tells who wrote the article and the date it was written. Then you have the lead paragraph or the introductory paragraph. In this particular paragraph, you want to say who, what, when, where, why, and how the topic is of relevance. And remember, introduction is here is pretty much for the writer to answer questions that will lead us to trying to get the purpose of the article. Then you have the explanation or the body of the article. This is similar, of course, to the body of the essay, where you have approximately 3 paragraphs, and these must be evidenced by supporting details. Then, of course, you want to close your article by summarizing the contents of the article. And if possible, it is best to leave a memorable statement or a call to action or recommendations. And there we have an example of an article. Notice the heading, overall heading. Notice the byline. Notice too the specific subheadings that could take place too. So just remember, title of article, writer's name, body, that's the main part of the article. You have the introductory paragraph, you have the developing paragraphs and additional information. Of course, you have your concluding paragraph where you end your article. Now the blog. Now the blog, to create a very exciting blog or blog post, which is what we call the body of the blog, you just need to have 4 specific areas. You need to ensure that you start with a catchy title, then you have an introduction which explains what will be in the body of your blog, and you give a quick overview of what you plan to teach. Then you have a body with the subheadings. The aim, of course, is to give credible information, and it must be in the appearance of well-developed paragraphs. Again, at least 3. It is important to link your details to other websites, or if you have an actual blog, that is. No, for the sake of the exam, stick to the 3 paragraphs. Ensure that you have a conclusion with recommendation and solutions. And of course, you want to close your blog with a question to get engagement. Now, we need to remember that because this appears in section 2 or B of the CSEC paper 2, again, the emphasis is that you pay close attention to the scenario they will tell you if they want you to write a blog, so you will know what to do. And then you have to look carefully at the information they're asking you to include in the blog, so that you put that in the body of your blog. So here is an example of a blog, and this blog quite interestingly has as its title or heading, how to write the best blog post. And then you have the introduction. Why are blogs important in this day and age? Many persons share their opinion, experiences, and advertise their goods and services online. To do this well, many opt to use a blog. This blog post is to give an overview on how bloggers can create the best blog post. And then you have the structure. That's it. Next subheading. A blog post should have 5 areas. It should have a heading, an introduction, 3 paragraphs, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. In a personal blog, use images, pictures, video links, and bulleted points. For the sake of the examination, focus on using well-developed paragraphs. Now, important facts, that's our third heading. A blog post must have an interesting hook. Ensure that you use very well-developed paragraphs. When writing the blog post, be very conversational. Remember to always end with a question. And going into our 4th paragraph now, interesting blog posts. The most interesting blog posts are those with a great conclusion. There should be a very interesting topic. Many are captivated by blogs with great facts and or opinions. The aim is to wow your readers so they make a comment on your blog post. And so we get into the conclusion now. And as expressed before, blogs are now the in thing. So as not to be left behind, make sure to write the blog that sees you being true to yourself. Bloggers recommend that other bloggers write on interesting topics. Start strong and end strong. So if you were to write a blog, what would you blog about? And notice the whole example ends with a question and some checklist questions just to help you to ensure that you are. What was the title? Did the introduction explain what will be in the body and what will be taught? Were there subheadings? How many body paragraphs did you see? Were they well developed? How do you know if they were or were not well developed? Was there a conclusion? Was there a question at the end? So these are some of the things. Again, can't overemphasize when it comes to the body of these different concepts that might be introduced under section B. You're expected to focus on the scenario. The scenario will tell you what you should include in the body. Now, should it be an email? Of course, you want to, just like any regular email, the format is from, to, subject, then you have there, the introduction, in which you say why you're writing. Of course, you have the 3 paragraphs in the developing paragraph section. And again, I'm going to emphasize that when it comes to the developing paragraphs of any piece of writing under section B, you have to stick to the scenario, pay attention to what you're asked to include. Then you have your conclusion and your closing and signature. And remember, if it's a formal email, which Csec loves to use, then you're expected to write out your full name. And the details down underneath would be the role that you're asked to play. So if you're an agent, you would have agent down there. Business manager, whatever role you're asked to play in the scenario given. Now, how do we write a report or a notice? Well, if you're looking on the left, you see that the report pretty much has a specified areas. So you have your title, which would relate when and what, where and what. And of course, you have the first paragraph, which is the introductory paragraph, which basically tells where the situation took place, when it was, and what it was. Then as you move into the body of your report, you are expected to focus on, again, on just strengthening the information now, when, where, what, As you get into the middle of the developing paragraph, who or what, and then you end now the developing paragraphs with what and who again. So you focus on the individuals involved in the report. Then by the time you get to the outcome of the scenario, the result now, you want to say what and who were involved here. And you want to end your report by indicating who is seen reporting this report. So you want to put your name right here where you would see Gleaner. So reported by and your name. So don't forget, that's the structure. Again, I'm going to emphasize that when we're focusing on the body, we're expected to go into the scenario. The scenario will provide us with enough information to do that properly. Now, as you go into the notice, a formal notice would have this appearance. So you want to say the type of notice that you're writing. If it's in relation to a company, you want to start with that. Then underneath it, you're going to have the date that the notice is being sent out. You want to say who is it being sent from and to whom the notice is addressed. And of course, by the time you get into the body, you will be given the information to write in the body of the notice in the scenario. So you just pretty much put it back in well-developed sentences. And of course, you end with respectfully and you put your signature, full name. Now, as we go into the narrative writing section, we know we get a choice between picture and statement. So choose wisely. But the aim is that whatever you choose to write, you only have 45 minutes to do it, and you need to produce 400 to 450 words. You don't get penalized for writing more than 450 words, but the aim is to ensure that you have 2 to 3 pages. 1 page will not be enough. All right. Now, as you go into writing your story, Csec will be looking to mark you on the content and relevance of your story. So the focus is first of all on your storyline or the plot, and that means the actual structure. So the storyline must be clearly developed, and that means that they want to see the events linked throughout the story. The conflicts or problem must be clearly revealed and resolved. The action must be satisfactorily motivated, and there must be some plausible reason for the things that happened. Then their setting must be established, and it must be clearly indicated. That means you must tell where and when and what takes place. All right. In terms of characterization, now your characters must be believable. And if there's any change in the character, you must ensure that that is clearly established, and the characters must be sufficiently developed. And if you use dialogue, the dialogue must be functional. It mustn't be an attachment. Then, of course, you're expected to ensure that the details or events presented must be logical and effectively sequenced. And as we continue to see what Csec is marking you for, of course, we can't overlook the fact that language is important. So use of language must be clearly presented. So you're asked to ensure that appropriate choice of words to create a characterization, the atmosphere and the setting they're used, ensure that the information is lively. So you want to ensure that the story, the words used in the story conveys particular imagery and a tone of excitement. Now, by the time you get over into the continuation of language, you have to think about the mechanics. That's the spelling, the punctuation, and paragraphing. They must be there. And you have to think too of the correct use of the structures, like the sentences must be complete, clear, and meaningful. And there must be transition between the sentences and paragraph, and subject and verb must agree, and the pronoun must agree, and there must be consistency in the use of tense. Remember, if you start in the past tense, you continue in the past tense. You start in the present tense, you continue in the present tense, unless you're going to use flashback. You can switch in between the tenses. Now, if the student's response satisfies no criteria, so if you're writing and whatever you write bears no relevance to the picture or no relevance to the statement, then you can only be given a 0. Now, there are different types of stories that you can choose to write. For Csec, you can write a regular story. We call it a linear story, where you just have the events in the story just happening from the beginning to the end, no change. Then you have the non-linear narrative, where you have the story out of order. So you have your flashback, and you have your literary devices, and you have the shift in the chronology of the story. You could have a quest narrative in which the protagonist works tirelessly towards a goal. And then, of course, you have the viewpoint narrative, which you have the characters' information being presented in such a way where we see an unreliable narrator experiencing certain situations or problems. Now, section 4, which is the last area in paper 2, again, you only have 45 minutes. Now, this is watered down to 250 to 300 words, which amount to 5 paragraphs. And for this section, you might see a persuasive writing piece, a speech writing piece, or an editorial. So it's a choice. But whatever it is, all 3 are pretty much persuasive writing. So what is it that Csec is looking for in section D? In section D, or question 5, Csec is looking to see that the content has argument and comment. So the information that you have selected must be relevant. The argument must be clear, and we must see that there's some sense of the writer's awareness of the audience. The writer must also ensure that there's an appropriate use of information to convey the purpose of whatever it is that he or she is writing. And you must write to evidence the information that you share. So, and you can evidence this by way of giving an example, giving out a different point of view, or any of the persuasive conventions that you have been taught. Remember too that you are expected to organize your information in a logical and reasonable way. So you need to present the information in such a way that you focus on the argument. Do not lose track of the argument. Ensure that the sentences and paragraphs surround this argument, and that the conclusion the writer draws must come from the same argument that is presented. Then, as you wind down for area 2, expression, again, it's use of language. So the sentences again must be complete, clear, meaningful. There must be effective and appropriate transition, subject-verb agreement, pronoun agreement, consistency in tense, and of course, accuracy in use of spelling, punctuation, and paragraphing. Now, the persuasive essay, of course, has introduction, body and supporting paragraph, and of course, you have your conclusion. The introduction in the persuasive essay should have a hook, and the hook can be a quote, a scenario, a question, an anecdote, vivid description, definition, general statement, among other things. And we ensure that there's some context to the topic as you present your opinion. Ensure that you have 3 thesis points, and ensure that these thesis points are presented clearly in the paragraphs that you are hopefully to convey. A paragraph, of course, must have supporting information. That could be facts, statistics, quotation, study research, anecdote, among other things. And ensure that you close each body paragraphs. You can close by connecting to the paragraph, to the next paragraph or to the overall topic. Now, as you wind down into the conclusion, ensure that you begin with your concluding transitional phrase. Then you're going to summarize or restate your thesis points, restate your opinion of the whole essay, and give a recommendation or a call to action. Of course, throughout the essay, you have to use transitional words, and these are some of them over here. What you could use at the beginning, what you could use in the middle, and what you could use at the end. Now, the speech. Don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed. When we talk about the speech, the only thing that makes a speech different from the persuasive essay is the fact that you're going to be asked to greet your audience and to give a speech ending. This outline is pretty much the same. After you would have greeted your audience, you're expected to have an introduction with a grab statement, an opinion statement, additional information, and a thesis, which is just the same way you do the introduction in your regular persuasive essay. Then you have your body with the 3 paragraph based on your thesis points that are evidenced by the various persuasive techniques that you can use. Then you have your conclusion where you rephrase your thesis, you repeat the highlights from your speech, and you give recommendation or suggestion to improve upon a situation. So how do you greet your audience? Well, you might start by saying, ladies and gentlemen, good evening or good morning to you all. Or you might start by saying members of the head table if it's an official speech where at a school event, members of the audience and well-wishers, good evening, good morning to you all. Just to do a quick thing, you might say all protocols observed, good evening, good morning, one and all. As I stand before today, I'm here too. I just jump right into it. How do you end the speech? Having done your introduction, your body, and your conclusion, you end with just a little sentence, I rest my case. So if you want to finish a conclusion, and I rest my case, or here ended my few words, or I hereby rest my case. And you can find other interesting ways to end your speech as well. Now, another choice that you might be asked to write on, of course, is the editorial. And again, the only difference here would be when you zoom in on putting in your sender's address, your date, and of course the receiver's address will be something that says which editor, which magazine or newspaper company that you're sending this information to, and your salutation should say or can say, dear sir, or the editor, or dear editor, sir, right? Then you have your introduction, which you begin with beginning and reason for writing. Then you have your body with the 3 reasons and their supporting evidence. You have a conclusion where you give a recommendation, call to action, or 3 suggestions. But as you zoom into the body, you can support whatever it is that you are conveying through sarcasm, rhetorical question, anecdote, exaggeration, hyperbole, statistics, explanation, example, repetition, authoritative details, and there are more that you could employ. Facts, research, among other things. Probably the most important thing about the editorial, apart from the salutation. So for this one, you definitely would have to say, "Dear editor, sir," or "the editor," at the salutation. But the most important part is how you end. Now, in ending an editorial, we'll normally start by saying, "I am etc." This is a phrase, and then you have a phrase or a description to describe how you feel. Could be distrustful, fearful. So you could have, "I am etc." Distrustful, or you could have, "I am etc. James Brown distrustful." So you have your closure and your signature there, and that's how you normally end your editorial. I hope this little presentation was a quick crash course for you, and I look forward to seeing your great results. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.